So with Chapter 2, as we start learning about financial statements and budgets, those of you that are accounting majors are going to have a little bit of a jump start because you've been working with financial statements. Those of you that are business students have has everybody been through Accounting 101 or some version of that? Anybody not? Okay, a couple of people. All right. Well, let's see how much you remember. How many major financial statements are there? 3. What's one of them? Your balance sheet, your income statement, and your statement of cash flows. Okay, we're going to be working on 2 of them. We're going to work on our balance sheet so that we all understand what our net worth is, and we're going to be working on a cash flow budget so that we can see where our cash comes from and where our cash goes. Okay? A profit and loss isn't as pertinent to an individual person. It's more of a business concept because we have to make adjusting entries to comply with accounting principles, and that just doesn't make that much sense for an individual human being. I've never done a P&L on myself. I do a cash flow statement to help me figure out where my money's coming from and where it's going and how I'm going to achieve my short, medium, and long-term goals. And once a year I do a balance sheet to see where our net worth is at. And sometimes when you want to borrow money for something, your banker wants to see a balance sheet, right? Okay, so with that all said, what are some documents that you think you need, that you should be able to put your hands on? If you were to do a cash flow statement and a balance sheet, what are some documents you would need to put your hand on? Or, okay, let's be honest, most of you probably don't even have paper documents. What digital records would you need to find? Okay. This is just a free-for-all. Let's just generate as much of a list as we can. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need to find my bank statement. What else?
Pay stubs.
Pay stubs. Excellent. What else?
Health insurance, like a packet that you got. It seems like.
So that's super important. Let's actually do 2 things. And this should be somewhere actually in your notes that would be something that maybe you tear out at some point and use. For cash flow and balance sheet. And then just other financial records. And that's a good point, Gabby. You definitely need your health insurance plan.
So, because like, I know that now we're going to change jobs rapidly, and we have to make sure our plans like are cohesive with the new job that we're
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, what else? Health care plan, bank statement, pay stubs. What else do you think you're going to need to put your hands on?
like your billing records, like all your bills that are.
Okay. Yep. Now, let's just think about this for a hot second. What percentage of your bills do you think you have to pay every month? I mean, all of them? 90% of them? I don't know. What do you think? You think 70 or 80%? What are some bills that aren't monthly? Go ahead.
Sewer bill.
Sewer, yep. Some of our utility bills are only quarterly, aren't they? Or I said that semi-annually, I guess. Some.
Taxes?
Taxes. Emily?
My car insurance is biannual, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Car insurance usually comes either 2 or 4 times a year. You guys are all in college.
Tuition statement?
Yeah. And let me just make this say bills and expenses. What do most of us like to do in the summer for a couple days or a week? Go on vacation, camp, she says, yeah. Camp, go on vacation, do something, get out of town, right? What did we just get done with that most of us went to the store or the online environment? Holidays, right? I mean, holidays always cost more money. We get cards, we get presents, we travel, we bake, we whatever, you know. So this list over here of non-recurring things is going to look different for everybody. Okay? We in our budget, I budget for our vacation and our Christmas. I budget car insurance, property taxes, life insurance comes due once a year. I'm trying to think what else. Plates on your car, right? Those only come once a year. I'm trying to think what else I've got that's only once a year. If you belong to anything, like I've got to pay to the American Institute of CPAs, that comes once a year. Anything, this is your challenge to think of things in your life. If you've got kids, you've got back to school clothes, you've got daycare bills, those may vacillate.
I just had to pay renter's insurance, and that's once a year.
Great. Yeah, renter's insurance, lots of insurances are. So the challenge is, you know, when, you know, most of us are like, oh, this is so boring, my rent's $320 and my, you know, internet's X, but most of our lives don't, I mean, some bills look like that month after month, but a lot of them don't. You know? Yeah, in the summer, if you're going camping every weekend, you've got probably a bigger, you know, gas bill and all that. Or if I'm going home to my folks for a month over Christmas, I don't have a gas bill at all because I'm in Connecticut. Okay, you get my point. What else? So I've got my bank statement, I've got my pay stubs, I've got my bills and expenses. Does anybody here owe money to anyone?
Credit cards.
You need your credit card statements. What else?
Like loans.
Yeah. You've got a car loan. It's probably not a bad idea to know exactly what's due on it at any point in time, and that is definitely going to be a part of your balance sheet, which we'll identify in just a sec. Gabby?
Keep track, like, because I know if you make regular car payments and you aren't late, it can contribute to your credit.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to track that, or?
Is there a way to track where your payments go?
Or like the credit you're receiving from making payments on time?
Oh, that's a great question. So we're going to do a whole section on getting our credit score. Honestly, I'm feeling like it's getting a little fuzzy on what is the real change in my FICO score, and what's being sent to me by agencies that want me to belong to a credit scoring app or system.
Yeah. When I downloaded
It's a little blurry.
When I downloaded Mint, it was on there. And I never really looked at my credit score.
Okay, so, and hopefully we're going to unpack that a little bit in our section on credit scores. We're going to try and find our credit score. I realize some of you aren't in a situation where you would even have a credit score yet because you've not really maybe formally entered the financial system. But I'm very vague. I get almost daily flashes now. Your FICO score has changed. I'm like, no, it hasn't. I mean, there's no way. I mean, it would change if I was applying for new loans, or if I'd expanded the balance on my credit card, or if I just paid off an outstanding debt, or I had a garnishment filed against me. I mean, I know when my FICO score changes.
Because I know, like, my parents had, you know, like, they had to pay money back, and it eventually affected their credit score.
Sure.
But once they paid it back, the company didn't, I guess, like, take their
Super.
side off of it. So
Right.
it was still catching them, and then they had to, like, go through this whole
Right,
process.
so the point that's being made here is that if you've had something that's adversely impacted your credit, and now you're taking care of it, you're paying off the back bill or taking care of the garnishment, when it's been released, it's up to you to go back on and check that the agency that was garnishing or encumbering your money has now released it. Because you're right, that happened to somebody in my family as well. But every time you make a payment, your FICO score isn't. It's impacted if you didn't make a payment and it gets reported as a late payment, then you're gonna see a ding. But because you're paying on time, does that make your FICO score, does that change it every month? And it doesn't. And sorry, FICO is your credit score. I'm getting way ahead of myself here. Okay, so credit card statements, loan statements, for a lot of you, that would be your also your student loan balance. I'm always a little shocked, my own kids included, like, really? You don't know within like a couple $1,000 of what you owe? That's just some big amount. Yeah, but it's important to know what that big amount is. Okay.
It's emotional.
It is emotional. This, as I said, everything about this class generates like, ah. Okay, and then, what else, what are we missing in here? What should you have other records?
Retirement plans.
Yeah, and that goes over here. Any investment accounts, right? If I started, I was a firefighter 3 years ago for a couple of years, I probably got a little retirement account started somewhere. Where is it? How much is it? How much is it earning? Is it still just sitting in the default investment, making 1.8%, which we just learned last week is dangerous because what's happening if you're making less than the cost of living?
Eroded away by inflation.
You're losing purchasing power to inflation, aren't you? Investment accounts, so you should see, what your retirement plan is. Can everybody put their hand on their last year tax return? Go ahead. Right? What else? This may or may not pertain to all of you. If you're still a dependent of your parents and you have no assets, I'm not sure why you would have a will, other than if you wanted to make your last wishes known. But literally in any other situation other than the one I just described, where you're still a dependent to your parents and you virtually have no assets, everybody needs some sort of a will. And that should be obviously in a fireproof box somewhere. What am I missing? A list of your assets. Oh, jeez. Huh?
If you loan money to someone,
Yeah. Any notes receivable? And when we get to the point where we're doing our balance sheet, I think sometimes it'll surprise people like, oh my gosh, I've got a gun collection. Or I've got a couple really nice pieces of jewelry my grandma left me. Or, I've got this little plot of land that is in my family. So although many of us might feel like, oh gosh, I really don't have, I've got a car. There may be more to the picture.
So I know like house fire insurance or flood insurance, you have to keep a record of your
Improvements.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this guide, these all go under the category of financial records for your cash flow or for your balance sheet. So this is a subset of assets. It's not only really obviously critical that you keep, if you have any real estate, that you keep all of your closing documents so that you've got something called a basis, right? How much did I pay for it? But it's also really important, particularly for tax planning down the road, that any improvements that you make are documented, right? we put on a new roof, we built a third bathroom, we, added a garage, whatever. Believe me, in 20 years, when someone goes, how much was that garage we put in back in 2000? No one's going to remember. Okay, and you need all that for when you either sell it or pass it on to your heirs for a whole series of reasons that I'm not going to go into, but yeah, that's all important. Okay, so that's a pretty good snapshot. Anything glaringly missing? So what we're going to be doing in this chapter is looking at what we did last chapter, which was financial goal setting, right? Short, mid, long-term goal setting, and our statements. We're going to do a personal balance sheet. Another name for a balance sheet is a net worth statement. Those are interchangeable terms. A net worth statement is the same thing as a balance sheet. We're going to, learning goal 3 and 5, fairly interchangeable as far as how I'm using it here. We're going to generate a list of our personal income and expenses, and then we're going to put that into a cash flow budget. We're going to talk about a good record keeping system. I'm not doing the part of the chapter, that's why I crossed it out, that uses ratios. Those are super calculation intensive, and as an introduction to the topic, I just don't see that they're that helpful. So we're not going to be actually covering the ratio part of this chapter. And then very importantly, because we're going to be doing this all semester, we're going to take our first peek at the time value of money and the idea of present value and future value. And spoiler alert, it is not about inflation. When I say to you, is $1 today the same as $1 10 years from now? Most of you go, well, no, duh, because of inflation. But that's actually not what we're talking about. We're talking about, and I alluded to this last week. Anybody remember? What happens if I put $100 in an account and get a yield of 5%? What's going to happen in 1 year? I'm going to earn 5% on it. What's going to happen in 10 years? It's going to compound because I'm earning what? Interest on the interest, right? My money generates interest, and then in the second year I earn interest on the principal and the first year interest. And what was that called again? Compounding. And then conversely, if I'm looking at an amount that I want in the future, like I want $600,000 before I retire. Well, that's lovely. If I want to take that amount and bring it back to today to figure out how much I need, that's called present value. And taking something out there and bringing it back today is called discounting. So when I'm going into the future, I'm compounding. I'm bringing it back to today, I'm discounting. And you can imagine they're both pretty helpful techniques to know how to do. Because what people do is like, oh, it's 12 years till I retire. I want $60,000 or $600,000 divided by 12. I need to put away $50,000 a year. Why is that faulty? I'm going to be earning interest on that. I don't need to put away $50,000 a year. I need to put away something what? More or less than that? Less. Because I'm going to be earning money on my own money on my own money.
Can you say the discount?
Sure. Gosh. Can we write on all these walls?
No.
No, okay. That would make me not as loved by the... I just feel like you guys can't see down here. Can you see down here?
Some of it, yeah. Not all of it.
Okay, if you need me to repeat stuff.
It might be the color.
Okay. Let's see if this is helpful. I couldn't get the cap off of it. Oh, I see. That's what that is. Okay. So the concept here is No, that one doesn't work, so sorry. I will get some black markers, that probably would be helpful. Let's see how purple is. The concept, Gabby, that Gabby asked for clarification, is that better? Is it better?
Yeah.
$1 today is going to be, the future value is going to be, worth more, right? Obviously, because you're compounding. And remind me what those rates were. I gave you 3 terms that were interchangeable on Thursday. One of them was yield. One of them was ROI.
Rate of return.
And rate of return. So I'm going to use all those terms interchangeably, and you just need to be there with me. So $1 today is going to compound at whatever yield I've got my money at, and it's going to be in the future worth something more. Conversely, Gabby, that amount coming back to today is called discounting. And I want to know what I need to do today to get out to some amount in the future. I've got to discount that future amount back to today. Okay. You guys heard of these terms? Okay, so that's learning goal number 6, applying the time value of money concepts to put a monetary value on financial goals. I want to pay off my student loan within 10 years. Awesome. You owe 20 grand. How are we going to use our tables in our book and present value and figure out how much I need to pay each year to get that thing paid off in 10 years? Okay. So you get the point of where we're going with that. Okay, so this is the first introduction to what our balance sheets are going to look like. And by the way, you're going to do one by Thursday. And really, the key to this whole thing's right here. And everybody that's in accounting knows this calculation, right? Assets equal liabilities plus net worth, or assets minus liabilities equals net worth. Let's define an asset. An asset is anything you own. A liability is anything you owe. And your net worth is your difference. Another term for net worth that I will use interchangeably, you're going to grow to hate that phrase, is equity. Equity and net worth are interchangeable terms. And the easiest way for most of us to understand equity is, I bought my car for $15,000. I owe $12,000 on it. Therefore, my equity in my vehicle is $3,000. The unfortunate thing about vehicles is they depreciate so quickly that it's a false sense of equity. So, bad example, but an example most students can wrap their head around. With real estate, particularly in a market like, say, here, that's going up, your equity is probably a whole bunch more than what you bought for your house versus your mortgage on it is. So it's a snapshot. It's not an exact science. Okay, here's your breakdowns. Here's your 4 subcategories. What's a liquid asset? Anything that's cash or cash-like. Checking account, savings account, money market account, all liquid. Investments are, go ahead. Stocks, bonds, coins, antiques, your gun collection. Well, yeah, that actually probably would go on personal property. Although, I guess you could make a pretty strong case there's different kinds of gun collections, aren't there? If you have, I don't know the terminology. What are the investment kind of guns, like the antiques? Older guns?
High-end shotguns.
Yeah, that. I don't know why I'm using guns as an example. I've got about 5 people in the whole state that don't own them. Okay, real property, that's your real estate, right, obviously. And then personal property is everything else. And just set a limit for what you think is the minimum you want to go down to. I don't care about your nail polish, but if you've got some really nice tools, that's gonna go on your balance sheet, right? So you just have to set some sort of minimum. Is it 50 bucks or 100 bucks? I'm not gonna list, I don't have a list of every single, you know, piece of costume jewelry you have, but if you've got, you know, a 2-carat diamond, that would go under personal. All right, so you get my point. When you do your balance sheet, these are all subheadings on Excel. And every single one of them has to be subtotaled. If you don't have any real estate, you're not gonna put real estate on your balance sheet and then show 0. You're just not gonna have the category there at all. Many of you will maybe only have 1 or 2 of these categories. That's fine. So it just is what it is, right?
If you own equity in a company, like directly, like you're not a stockholder, well, I guess kind of hard. But
No, you are.
like an owner, which is, yeah, same thing.
Investments.
Investments.
And then liabilities, all I'm asking you to do, there's only 2 categories, and it's broke down by do I owe it in the next 12 months, i.e. current, or do I owe it a year or more in the future? What if you have a car loan that's going to take you 4 more years to pay off? Part of it's current. The next 12 months is a current liability. Oh my goodness, how am I going to find that? Does everybody know where to find their loan statements? Their vehicles or their whatever? In that, documentation somewhere is something, this is a big long word, but a very important one. Amortization schedule. An amortization schedule shows you over the life of whatever the loan is, whether it's a mortgage, car loan, not a credit card, but a loan, not a line of credit, but a loan for a set amount, in a set time period, and a set payment. You can go into your amortization schedule and see exactly month by month by month by month where your payments go. How much goes to interest and how much goes to principal. And then the next month, because you paid down the principal, there's going to be more to principal and less to interest. And at some lovely point in the life of the loan, your payments are going to be going more to principal and less to interest. Right? Does that make sense? So on your amortization schedule, you can see really clearly if I still owe $23,000 on my vehicle, how much do I owe the next year, and how much do I owe the 3 years after that? For current liabilities, I want to see any outstanding bills today. So for example, sitting in my to pay box is my Northwest Energy bill for $287 and my property taxes for $1,900. I don't want you to tally up your rent for the next year. I don't want you to tally up, so I want, so let's see, I'm not getting super clear. So under current liabilities are bills that are outstanding today. What do I owe today? Okay,
So
go ahead.
So if you're the, I know university does the apartments where like it's due on the 30th, but you have time to pay it on the 5th, but it's outstanding on the 5th, but you're not penalized.
Yeah. I think you can put it in 1 month of rent. 1 month of bills that you see that, but I don't want to see, it's going to skew it if you put a whole year of your current liabilities for rent in there. Okay?
So for like the utilities, so let's say like I have $80 utilities a month, you're wanting just
80,
the 80.
just 80. Yep. Ask some other clarifying questions.
So we just wanted to estimate for light utilities because we haven't been billed yet for
Sure.
this month yet?
Sure.
Okay.
And this is all, I mean, well, actually it shouldn't be estimation, but most of it will be documented, few things will be estimated, and that's just we're doing the best we can. But with something that's on a set loan schedule, like a mortgage or a student loan, that is, well, none of you probably have student loans that are due because you're in deferment right now. So that for most of you, those will go under long-term liabilities.
So do we kind of want to frame this more in terms of February rather than January?
We are going to be doing this as of Feb. 1, 2020. net worth as of 2/1/20.
What about, so say you have a mortgage payment and you paid more on that, would you include that? Or
No,
just
so
the actual
what-
liability, or just the
Okay,
actual
so,
payment
and then
amount?
this does get a little bit, it gets a little trickier. So with a mortgage, you actually have to include the next 11 months of payments. And then everything else goes on long-term.
Okay.
Because that's a bona fide loan or debt or outstanding liability.
What about like your
So a year's worth would be the current, and then the rest.
Everything else,
the
and
rest
you're gonna
of that would
find
be
what the
long-term.
balance is gonna be after the next 12 months, is gonna be on your amortization schedule.
And so, no, like same with like car insurance? Or you want
We're
us to
only
just
gonna
like-
do stuff like that if it's on the docket in the next 30 days.
Okay. Could
I mean,
you-
I've just gotta make something up that we can just all stay consistent with.
Could you add for assets if you paid a year's worth of insurance?
Great question. Yeah, great question. All right, well, let's just make a decision. So this is a question from one of my accounting students. She's prepaid her insurance for a year. Are we gonna count that as an asset? Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
I think so. I think so.
And that would be for the policy amount, not your.
No, for the premiums.
For the premiums,
For the
okay, yeah.
premiums. Good question.
Because you haven't like used.
You haven't used it up. You have the
Yeah.
right to be insured for the next 11 months. Okay, so let's take a peek at what I think, and then the difference is, the math is just then, your net worth is the difference between assets and liabilities. So let's take a peek at what we think this is going to look like. Let's see, worksheet 221. Now, when you get on this worksheet, you'll see there's two wait, what's that? Oh, here we go. There's two tabs. One says cash budget and one says net worth. We're working on the net worth one. Now, this is just something I completely made up. Here's my balance sheet. Do not even enter a category if you don't have something in it. So if I don't have any investments, I'm not going to set up a category called investments. Okay? This is just an example. This obviously isn't your balance sheet. This is just what I want it to look like. So you can see each of the subcategories is bolded and then a list. I've got, a Jeep and an F-150 and a camper and some furnishings and a boat and some artwork. Great. Some of them are estimates, obviously. And then you're going to total up, subtotal them here. So you're going to have, I'm going to be able to go and see, oh, my personal property is X. And my investments are Y. And my liquid assets are Z.
You could include textbooks as assets, right? Like if you get a hard copy of something? Or
Again, okay, so Gabby's question was, should we put our textbooks in there because many of us can sell them back? You've got to come up with some minimum that makes sense with your numbers for your personal property. Okay, my mythical person here that I just did all their stuff for, my mythical person decided that $800 or $500 was his or her minimum. They weren't going to list anything under that. But if you're like 19 years old, that's probably a pretty high bar. Your minimum bar might be 50. That's cool. It just has to make sense for your numbers.
So book value or like replacement value?
Okay, so then the next question is, I bought my camper for $3,000 and now it's worth $800. Is that book value or fair market value? Fair market value. That defies everything you've learned in accounting. But again, back to the car example, if you buy a car, like a new car, especially for 30 grand, and you drive it off the lot, and a year later you owe 29 on it, what's that vehicle probably worth? Something a whole bunch less than 29. So it doesn't really make sense to show positive net worth on a car that you're upside down on already.
Oh, so it's 250.
One more time. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Great. So the question is, what number goes in here? My contention is that it should be fair market value. Your liabilities are actual numbers that you get from your credit card company, your bank statement, your student loan documents. Okay, those aren't estimates, we know exactly what that is. And our cash, I mean, I know that I've got right now $16 in my wallet and $129 in my savings account. Okay, those are actual numbers. Really, the only place you're mucking around with is real property and personal property.
Do you include, like, so if my husband has a truck and I have a car, do you include his?
Okay, so for those of you that are sharing your assets and your finances with somebody else, you're going to have to make that decision for both your cash flow statement and your balance sheet. If you're a couple that basically shares your assets and your income stream, I would put it together. I mean, it's not like, you know, if you're not, which a lot of younger, I've got a lot of young tax clients that live together and are married and even have kids and houses, but they don't merge their money, then it might make more sense for you to do it separately. Whatever makes the most sense in your situation. Okay, so what we're going to do is start on this. Now, what you don't have today is all of this, right? But you're going to need to get on here what you need to go there. For things like cars and campers and boats, I would just go use the, kellybluebook.com. And again, is it completely accurate? No. Is it an estimate? Yes. Okay. With property, real estate, that's going to be a little bit trickier. Just do your best. For most of us, again, looking at the average age out here, there's going to be a lot of, like, I've got a savings account, I've got a few little maybe credit card bills. It's not going to be some huge project. For those of you with a little bit more complicated lives, some more mature students, it may be. So, this is your guideline. Do not copy and paste this. I'm just giving you a guideline. You're going to subtotal each of these categories and then line them out here. So I'm going to give you 25 minutes today, or 22 minutes today, or whatever, to get started, and I can walk around and I can answer questions. I'd like this hard copy by Thursday. And I will write up here what pages I need you to read in preparation for Thursday, because we're going to be going into some calculations that are a little tricky. So I want you to read ahead of time. Okay, everyone feel like they know what they're doing?
And you said this is from February 1st, right?
This is as of, so great question. Balance sheet, I said right up here, your balance sheet and your name, as of a certain date. A balance sheet is a snapshot of a point in time. Okay, so as of, now we're just going to call that February 1st, 2020.